Welcome to this new episode of AREB Bites, a video series that will document the milestones and highlights of AREB, an acronym that stands for the Arabic Roots of European Biology, a three-year research project funded by the European Union within the framework of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. My name is Tommaso Alpina. I'm a historian of philosophy and science in the Islamic world and the principal investigator of this three-year research project. In the previous episodes, we saw two examples of the first move of the strategy Avicenna implements in his zoology to reconcile philosophy and medicine and create a true, proper philosophy of the organic body as a common ground between the two. Today, we look at the second of these two moves. This move consists in the transfer of primarily or purely medical concepts and notions from medicine to philosophy, in order to avoid conflict of competencies between medicine and philosophy, about which one is entitled to deal with what has the status of principle, and at the same time to avoid any claim on the part of physicians to investigate autonomously, I would say, the principles of their art. In the so-called generalities, kulliyat, of the first book of his Canon of Medicine, among the philosophical principles which medicine takes from philosophy, Avicenna also includes medical notions such as pneuma or spirit, ruh, humours, akhlat, and temperament, mizaj. The reason behind Avicenna's choice lies in the main tenet of his system of science. Following Aristotle, Avicenna believes that every science cannot ascertain its own principles, but has to assume them from a higher discipline, a higher science, unless they are self-evident. Being subordinate to natural philosophy, medicine must take from it its own principles, thus conforming to this general model. For this reason, any grounding principle for medicine must be transferred from medicine to philosophy, even though the philosophical tradition to which Avicenna adheres, namely Aristotelianism, did not consider them as principles. In the previous episodes, we have already encountered the notion of pneuma or spirit, this sui generis body at the intersection between the corporeal and the incorporeal, which is the first receptacle of the soul and the vehicle of soul powers. Pneuma helps to explain the physiological and pathological conditions of the activities of soul powers. However, it is not an alternative account of how soul powers work, but is rather a complement to the account provided by philosophers. Because of its middle rank amphibious status between soul and body, Avicenna deals with it in the last chapter of his Kitab al-Nafs, Book of the Soul, which is a bridge between the investigation of the soul just conducted in psychology and the investigation of the organic body which will be conducted in zoology. The case of humours, and to some extent that of temperaments, as we shall see shortly, is similar to the case of pneuma or spirit. At Avicenna's times, but this will be true also for the centuries to come, medicine is essentially Galen's humoral medicine. Humours are the building blocks of the animal organic body, and their balance or unbalance in the body or in one of its parts causes health or sickness. Humours are the proximate material constituents of the body on which physicians act to preserve or restore health. Therefore, physicians must know what humours are. However, being principles for the medical art, their investigation exceeds the boundaries of medicine. For this reason, Avicenna has to move humours from medicine to natural philosophy, even though Aristotle did not envisage a place for them in his own natural philosophy. This move helps Avicenna to philosophically ground what might seem to be an autonomous medical theory, namely humoral theory. In this perspective, the knowledge of what misage, temperament, is, and its different kinds, proves to be also relevant, because temperament interactions bring about humours as well as body parts, both homogeneous parts such as bones and tissues, and organs. However, temperaments whose interactions give rise to those things in the body are not philosophical temperaments, but they are actually existing counterparts. What does it mean? Well, in natural philosophy, Avicenna defines misage, temperament, as a uniform quality resulting from the mixture of the four elemental qualities: hot, cold, dry, and wet. This temperament can be either absolutely balanced or absolutely unbalanced. However, these temperaments are philosophical concepts which exist only in the mind. As Avicenna says in the first book of his canon, physicians must know the nature and features of the temperaments which can be actually found in nature, because this knowledge is useful for healing operations. In particular, physicians must know the classification of those temperaments and also the ratios of their constituents. In particular, the range between two extremes within which that temperament is balanced, therefore healthy, and suitable for the entire body or one of its parts and its functions. Avicenna seems to provide the study of these temperaments, temperaments actually existing in nature, in the first book of his canon. However, if that were the case, medicine would have an autonomous theory of temperament independent of the one provided in natural philosophy. Being the proximate material constituents of the animal organic body, actually existing temperaments and what derives from it, humours as well as body parts, should be treated in the part of natural philosophy dealing with the organic animal body, that is zoology. For this reason, in the anatomical part of his Kitab al-Hayawan, Book of Animals, which ideally corresponds to Aristotle's Parts of Animals, Avicenna doesn't deal with teleology or hypothetical necessity, which feature at the beginning of Aristotle's work, but rather he deals with the material constituents of the animal body, that is, temperaments and their classification, and humours and their origination. The transfer of medical principles from medicine to philosophy is the second move of Avicenna's strategy to create a true philosophy of the organic body in his zoology. The distinctive feature of this second move is both doctrinal and methodological, and has to do with the new role Avicenna assigns to Galen. In the 12th treatise of his Kitab al-Hayawan, Book of Animals, which features the exposition of the topics discussed so far, Galen is no more the excellent physician Fadil al-Atibba, but becomes, and is even referred to, as the validating physician, Muhassil al-Atibba. Given the importance Avicenna assigns to validation, tahsil, in his philosophical practice, we see that this new epithet marks a shift in the way in which Avicenna considers Galen. Galen is no more an authority in the limited and practical field of medicine, but rather vies with philosophers in dealing with principles and providing them. Furthermore, the fact that at the beginning of his Parts of Animals, Aristotle distinguishes two different body parts, homogeneous and organic, makes it easier for Avicenna to graft medical concepts such as temperaments and humours onto Aristotle's natural philosophy. The first season of this video series ends here. Subscribe to the channel for updates and news about the upcoming new season.